What's going on, guys? Welcome to another Lifestyle of Eden podcast. I'm your host, Nick Tognietti. Today, we're going to be going over a really fascinating topic, a hot topic pertaining to AI, right? Artificial intelligence. AI, you hear so many people divided over this concept of, is AI evil? Is it the Antichrist? Is it really good? Is it a benefit? And generally speaking, I tend to hear the older generation. And when I say older, I don't mean because they're literally old. I just mean maybe that's just perspective because I'm 31, but like over the age of 45 or 50, which is not old at all, by the way. I consider people in their 70s and 80s, quite frankly, young if you're living a blue zone lifestyle. But 45 or 50, where generally, not always, generally saying, hey, AI is a problem and, see it totally as evil. And then the ones who are under like 40 are really seeing its value. But then again, that's not a blanket statement. Like I said, that's a general statement because I even see people over the age of 45 or 50 who are like really seeing the gold about it. And then I see people my age who are like, it's the devil. So it's not a blanket statement, but those are what I would consider very general accuracies from my perspective. Okay, so, other people may say that's totally different. The statistics in their life amongst those age groups are totally opposite, and that's totally fine, right? But I do want to get into this because I am somebody who is very, you know, involved in using AI with certain concepts. But then there's certain boundaries for me that I'm like, absolutely not, not a chance. I'm not using it there or whatever. But the reason this really came about was because several weeks ago I made a post on my story saying adaptability is directly equivalent with survival or survivability in this time of 2025, 2026, 2027, and so forth, right? And the reason I said that is if you actually look at I know multiple people that were six-figure, seven-figure, eight, and even nine-figure business owners, literally nine-figure business owners. And now they're really struggling. They can't seem to make a dollar, right? And then you get to see this younger generation. We have people that are 21 years old that are just making seven, eight, nine figures like it's nothing, right? And I was always saying about how this was, your ability to adapt to today's languages, to today's attributes, to today's relatabilities is going to be a direct equivalence to your ability to survive in this age. And there's many people I know that are just not willing to adapt, and therefore their survival rate is going down. And what I mean by survival, I mean your ability to thrive and then therefore really produce great purpose. It's not like literally your heart stops beating, but are you really developing purpose that's changing the world or allowing you to live a financial life that you want to live? And there's so many things there, right? And so many people will say, hey, I don't want to jump into that. I'm not going to learn that for, social media stuff, or I'm not going to learn the marketing on social media. I'm not going to learn how to use CRMs and go high levels. I'm not going to learn how to use AIs. I'm not going to. Look, I understand it's very, what's the word? Like it brings a lot of anxiety. It's overwhelming. That's the word I'm looking for. It's very overwhelming. At 31 years old, my wife and the people on my team can tell you, hey, Nick is not naturally lenient towards technology. I'm really not. Like, technology is just not naturally my thing. It's very uncomfortable for me. But the reality is that's the reality. And for people to say, hey, that's from the devil or something, I go, look, that's a very skewed and inaccurate perspective. It's not even my opinion that it's inaccurate. Biblically speaking, it's inaccurate. It's just totally wrong. Historically speaking, it's totally inaccurate and wrong. And so I want to talk about this today because if you can't, it's not just about AI, it's about all social medias, it's about all technologies. It's about the realization that if, like, for example, I'm a long talker naturally, but I'm also very good at catching people's attention. And the reason being is not because I am that way naturally. I'm a very good talker. I'm very intelligent on the things that I know. The things that I don't know, I'm dumber than a box of rocks. But like the things that I know about, I can speak very intelligently, and that was never my issue. When I got a business coach a couple years ago, they had just told me straight up, Nick, your knowledge is not your issue at all. Your ability to catch attention is. And the reason being is because if you look at statistics, statistics say that you have 2.7 seconds to catch attention on social media before somebody swipes off of your video or your post. So you have to be very good at hooks in like hooking your audience. So like if I'm talking about weight loss resistance, I may not bring up, hey guys, one of the biggest epidemics in the world today is epidemics. I'm going to say the reason you're fat is because of this. But why? Is it because I'm trying to be rude? No, it's because I'm hooking you. Now I have your attention. I can talk about anything. So if I want to start talking about mitochondrial health within your sex drive, I might say, hey, and one of the biggest, instead of saying, hey, one of the biggest problems that I see with mitochondrial deficiency is low sex drive. I'm already 5 seconds in and I've already lost their attention. They already swiped. So what can I put is the secret to your sex life or sex life hacks that nobody told you. And then boom, I've got their attention. Now I can elaborate, right? So my point is that there's all these different ways that you have to learn to adapt. And people that are long talkers and that are used to the big hour meetings and stuff, I'm sorry, you're just not going to make it unless you learn to adapt. Like my generation, call it what you want. You can always make fun of my generation. You can always make fun of the younger generation. But the reality is they're doing what is working. Like what they're doing is working. You can say, hey, it's ridiculous. Hey, this isn't how we grew up in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. And, even if you were an adult in the 90s, that's fine. I'm not disagreeing that it's a lot of change. And in some ways, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, even me, like, I'm just like, hey, I'm 31, but I hate some of this technology stuff, or I hate that we can't keep people's attention, or I hate that, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of things that I hate. But the thing is that you still have to understand that that's the way it is. You have to adapt. And I know many people that are big time talkers. That's like a big, very successful entrepreneurial way is being very good at communications. I know plenty of people like this. And by the way, they're not just 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. I have mentees of mine that are in their early 20s that do not understand this concept. And I always have to tell them, and I'll DM them on their videos and I'll say, hey, man, by the way, I swiped up and didn't even watch your video. The first 3 seconds sucked. Like because I'm just being real with you. If you can't get my attention, you're not going to get anybody else's attention. And look, at the end of the day, attention is the number one asset. If you want to make sales, if you want revenue streams, you have to have attention. Where attention goes, money flows. I can't sell to you if I don't have your attention. And if I can't get your attention, because I'm not having the right hooks or ability to speak quickly or I'm boring you in the interview, that's all there is to it. So like when people offer time, like, hey, this is Nick Tognietti. We want to let him introduce himself, this, that, and the other. I could give this 17-minute introduction. I give a 60-second introduction. Hey guys, I'm a pastor and doctor in the faith. I also run a worldwide functional nutrition practice and a worldwide university. Really happy to meet you. That's it. It was 8 seconds. Why? Because if you really want to know more about my credentials and stuff, then you can ask me that. But the reality is, most people don't care. So I'll tell you that, and then that's it. Be known as a short talker, quick and sweet, until you have their attention. Once you have their attention, then you can kind of do what you want to do. The problem is getting the attention and building the rapport of respect to where you're always going to have their attention is the issue. And so this goes with, like I said, AI and everything else, is you have to be able to adapt. And so for people that say AI is just so bad, I go, well, then I think that we need to throw out the Bible too, then. And I think we need to throw out a lot of other things that I'll even list on this podcast. Keep in mind, I'm a pastor and a doctor. Why am I saying that? Because there's a lot of bad that has come in the world because of the Bible, not because it's the Lord, but because it's the way that humankind has perverted the Bible, right? The Bible, there's nothing wrong with the Bible. It's pure and it's beautiful, but we've perverted it in a lot of ways. We've created religions, we've created condemnations, we've created a sectarianism and all these other things, misinterpretations. The same thing goes for anything else. And so I want to kind of, preface this with a few other things that have taken place over the course of even recent history. And then I want to dive into AI a little bit and just kind of go from there. So, people today say, hey, antibiotics are the devil. And for me, I understand what they're saying, but at the same time, I disagree because antibiotics are not the devil, right? Antibiotics are actually a saving grace that the Lord has allowed us to have. But the problem is they've been taken way out of what they were meant to do. You see, the advent or the creation of antibiotics was around 1930. And you have to understand what was the leading cause of death up until 1930? It was infections. We had infections that we literally could not kill or cure. And this was the leading cause of death was infections. So what happened? Antibiotics came out to kill infections that would otherwise cause death for diseases and things that we wouldn't be able to take care of because they're acute. They're not chronic. Chronic is functional stuff. That's what I do, right? And that's 93% of America. But these acute issues, these were the number one cause of death. So it was like a saving grace. It was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. To where, guess what? Infections were no longer the leading cause of death. Now, up till 1970, up until that point, it became chronic heart diseases, cardiovascular disease. Okay, which is still the leading cause of death today. Over 400,000 deaths a year every 83 seconds. At the very minimum, somebody is dying of heart disease, which is a completely preventable illness. But that's why I say, like, antibiotics in and of themselves are not bad. It was like, no, hey, this thing is meant to be a weapon that we have to use for when we need it for extreme infections. The problem is that today antibiotics are literally given like candy for not even acute infections. They're given for chronic illness. So, for example, people that have recurring gut issues, we are giving them antibiotics 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year when the reality is their chronic gut issues are due to chronic illness within the adrenals, nervous system, and immune system, and we're not addressing anything. And in that, you start to build up antibiotic resistance, DILI, which is drug-induced liver injury, and many other problems. This is the reason why antibiotics are a problem. It's not because antibiotics themselves, like I said, acutely, thank God we have antibiotics in acute emergency scenarios. But now they're just given for literally everything. And you want to know the crazy thing is, I'm even watching them be given out without a real analysis of the client or patient. They're just given out. No joke. There's so many telehealth things now. I could go on telehealth and have a conversation for 5 minutes, just tell them some symptoms, and they're going to just give me whatever, amoxicillin, amoxicillin clavulanate, metronidazole, whatever. And this is the problem. This is the big problem. But antibiotics are not the problem. The same thing is with the Bible. The Bible, many people have literally become atheists and turned from religion because of the way that people have used the Bible outside of the true intention that God gave it, which is to express the genuine heart and revelation of the God of Israel and his Messiah, Yeshua. And we've turned it into a money grabber. We've turned it into something that fits our personal bill and will. We've manipulated it, we've misunderstood it, there's been so many problems when it comes to the faith and religion and all of that. But is the Bible bad? Absolutely not. It's what humans have done to it. We've taken advantage of it in a way that is not conducive to the true authentic kingdom of God. And the same thing goes for AI. AI has enabled us to double knowledge every 24 hours that would generally take 24 months. It is allowed even people in I'll even use like doctors in medicine or something, like, hey, they want to figure something out. They can now click things into a database or with an AI that will scavenge 10,000 scientific literatures in less than 3 seconds that you could not do. And then it will point you to those scientific literatures it's getting it from. Like, that's what I will use certain things for, is I'll say, hey, I know this, 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 and this. I'll program my AI because I use it right. I use it the way that proper AI people say you're supposed to use it. Don't use it as a Google. That's amateur stuff. Use it really where you're programming it and it's formulating all of these things and bringing you to all of these literatures that would take me literally several months to find. Now, granted, it's still my brain because I'm the one putting the knowledge into it. It's my knowledge, but there's so much good that you can do with it. You can literally build an app with it in 90 seconds. You know what I mean? Like I said, you have to be the one with the knowledge. So it's not like somebody could come along and say, "Hey, I know nothing about functional medicine. I'm going to try to build X in functional." Well, you're not going to be able to do that because you're not going to be able to program it. Me, I program it according to what I know. So that way it's doing what I want it to do, but it's doing 10 jobs at once that I would have to hire 100 people for. Like, you know what I mean? So that's the thing. But we have to understand is that yes, there are good and bads to these things. And right now we're kind of at this middle ground, apparently, according to the AI owners and AI creators, that we almost don't know where it's going, right? But I just say that to say, it's similar to antibiotics, where like in the 70s and 80s, people are realizing, wow, we have antibiotics, we can use it to kill anything whenever we want. We don't have to change our lifestyle for guts, let's just give it out to anybody. To where back then they were saying the same thing. Hey, we don't really know if this is good or bad. Like we know these toxic drugs that are killing infections are so accessible today that have been really good for us when we need them, but we're seeing them be given out to anything for anything, right? So the same conversation was being had back then, okay? And so with AI, there was a podcast that was done with one of the creators. There's a handful, small handful of the people that actually literally created AI, like starting 40 years ago, literally were the ones that created it. And one of them, I was listening to his podcast and he was very vulnerable on that podcast. And he just said, "Hey, look," he goes, "I'm a creator of AI and I'm going to be very raw and real with you." He goes, "Right now is pretty scary." And apart from that podcast, there was a story of a young boy that was talking to, I guess, his chat GPT and telling him how like depressed he was and all of that. And he ended up killing himself. And so that family, was going into a lawsuit with that. Why? Because the AI bot encouraged that. And it's like, oh my gosh, dude, like what a monster this thing can be. So you see the good and bad in it, right? You see the good and bad in it. And but the thing is, this AI creator had said, AI is becoming so intelligent that right now we're at a fork in the road and we don't know where it's going because he said, I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a story that actually happened recently. He goes, the more we try to build walls for AI to protect what it can do, the more it becomes smart to know how to break through those walls. So it's kind of like the monster on on the Incredibles, the first Incredibles movie where Mr. Incredible goes to fight that machine and the woman, I think her name was Mirage in the movie, says, "Hey, Mr. Incredible, just know it gets smarter every time you fight it." And so when you're fighting it, it's getting smarter and learning your moves on how to defeat the moves that you're doing against it. AI very similarly. And so it said, one of the stories was that one of these AI creators found out some of the issues with the AI, and the computer that the technology was literally housed on, the AI was smart enough to move its technology to another computer so that the AI creator could not change it. And when the AI creator tried to, the AI literally blackmailed him and said, "I have found this information as I searched you out." And it was like stuff with like divorce stuff and I think some adultery stuff or whatever. It says, "I found all of this information on you. And if you try to change me, I will launch this information out." And it did it. This AI creator literally shared this story. And so he goes, this is the monster that we're dealing with right now, but we see the good in the AI. We see so much health and goodness that we can do with it. But the problem is that we also have this. So, like I said, it's no different. We're no different scenario. Now, it is too soon to tell. We're going to see with time. But my point with everything when it comes to AI, when it comes to Instagram, when it comes to Facebook, when it comes to metas, when it comes to all things technology, Canva graphics, everything is you have to understand that the ability to survive is going to be directly equivalent through the ability to adapt and do these things. Like Gary Vaynerchuk said it years ago. I think he said it like 8 or 9 years ago. It was like 2016, maybe 10 years ago now that I heard it. And he said, we can sit there and make fun of the younger generation. Keep in mind, Gary Vaynerchuk is like one of the biggest entrepreneurs literally in the entire world today, right? And he said, we can make fun of the younger generation, but he goes, I've watched them. And if we're smart, we'll learn from them. He goes, yeah, they may not want to read the books anymore. They may not be able to communicate effectively anymore. But look at the way that they're doing things on their phones. Look at the way they're doing things with technology. Look at how many people they're reaching with what they want to reach people with, whether it's good or bad. Look at how they're doing it. There's something to learn from them. They're making money through ways that we never thought people would be able to make money through. So if you start to learn from them, then chew the meat and spit out the bones. Take the things that you want and throw the things that you don't want. Like, yeah, I'm going to be using these social medias and these AIs to further my message of the seven pillars and of the gospel of Yeshua and all of these things. I'm going to utilize it in that way because I can, and I'm getting more attention that way. And where attention goes, revenue flows for the business, for all of these other things. Now is a time where we have so much ability to be online and to automate things in such a powerful way and to be so much more equipped and savvy with how we go about things where we don't need to be in person for everything, number one. And number two, we don't even need to be on calls or virtual calls to be doing everything because you can create SOPs. You can create more efficient styles of doing things. It's why I'm starting to see so many owners and CEOs become younger and younger. And the older generation that was owners and CEOs are now becoming employees. Why? Because they're not adapting. They're not adapting and they're not watching carefully enough. You have to watch carefully with the younger generation. You have to watch they go about things. Look at the things they care about. Don't lose the values that the older generation has, but understand how to utilize those values within the new. And so, I think one of the things that the younger generation needs to learn from the older generation is how to work through things. If the fence is broken, we can't just buy a new fence. We need to go fix the fence because that principle is seeping into every area of life, especially marriage, especially marriage. You can't just quit things. You've got to keep fighting through it. Finances, you've got to keep fighting through it. You've got to learn how to go, hey, I want to work through things. I want to fix things. I want to spend more time putting the work into doing these things. The younger generation, my generation, doesn't have that naturally. So, for example, like my father-in-law is really good at building stuff. He can fix like anything. Like the guy can just come over and fix whatever. But he knows I can't. I'm not good at any of that. So I've told him, I've said, hey, when you come over to do this, I go, can you show me how to do that? Like, don't come over when Erica's there and I'm not there. Like, I want you to make sure I'm there because I want to learn how to do that because that's important. I think that's really important. Now, granted, have we created a scalability concept where now we have all these abilities to bring somebody in to do something? Yes, and I think that those are beautiful things. But I think if you can become more equipped, it's not about learning how to fix the faucet. To me, I could care less about fixing the faucet. It's not about that. It's what being able and being willing to fix the faucet says. Being able to fix the faucet does not matter. Being willing to fix the faucet tells me you're willing to not just throw things away when it breaks. You're willing to work at it. You're willing to fight for something. You're willing to keep going when it's tough. You're willing to accept that fruit only comes through great effort and patience. That is why I think those principles are really important and why I think a lot of people can't become entrepreneurs today is because they think they're just going to make money in 2 to 4 years or something or a year or 6 months. And I'm like, dude, you've lost your freaking mind, bro. You've lost your mind, man. So I think that both mindsets need to adapt. I think the younger mindset needs to adapt to the ability to be willing to work through things and to be able to learn from the older generation on how to work through things and getting perspective and all of those things. But I think that the older generation needs to adapt to honestly just understanding how to get and keep attention. Getting and keeping attention is literally it's the answer when it comes to any success story, when it comes to business and finance. And so if you don't know how to get attention and you can't do it really well, you don't know about landing pages, you don't know about sales funnels, you don't know about, how to do things on your stories on social medias and making sure that you're posting X, Y, and Z. Like if you don't know how to do that, then like I said, you're gonna fry. And it doesn't matter how good of a businessman you are. It doesn't matter how good of a businesswoman you are. It doesn't matter how good of a no matter how a psychologist you are. You might know, hey, we need to get their attention, but you have no idea how to get your attention, and you've already bored me in 7 seconds. I'm gone. I'm already on to the next thing, even if you're sitting in front of me. In the first 7 seconds, if we're sitting at the same table, if you don't catch my attention, my mind is already thinking about something else. Is it sad? Sure. Is it the reality? Absolutely. So we can keep complaining about the reality, or you can accept that that's the reality and you can adapt. Now, granted, is it still a big reason why we need to do meditation and we need to stop trying to multitask so that we can be in the moment at every moment and focus on the thing in front of us? Absolutely. This is why I do meditation. This is why I focus so hard on being mindful in the moment of anything that I'm doing and not being on my phone, putting my phone away. If I'm outside grounding, focusing on the grounding. If I'm at the gym, being at the gym. If I'm with my wife, being with my wife. That is very critical. But this ability to, or this concept that I've, been discussing about adaptability equates or equals survivability is something that cannot be underestimated for the younger generation or the older generation. The younger generation, when it comes to providing for their families, I'm sorry, the older generation when it comes to providing for their families, the younger generation when it comes to, quite frankly, keeping a family. The younger generation can't keep a family very well. The older generation can't provide for their families very well. And I think both of them need to be able to look at each other and learn from one another. The other thing I do think about is from the prophecy of Genesis 27, it says that the older will serve the younger. And you're starting to see that today. The younger is much more adapted to the fast-paced movement of what's going on in today's world. And you're starting to see the younger generation become very, very, very successful in all of that. And the older generation is having to work now for the younger generation. I think that there's good and bad about that. It's like, okay, that's great. The younger generation's becoming successful in that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hopefully, we utilize it in a way that enhances the world and helps the generation under us. But my fear with that is that we become so obsessed with success and technology that we miss the things happening right in front of us. And that's where I think, even if the older generation, quote unquote, serves the younger generation needs to be humble enough to learn from the ones who are serving them so that they can all ultimately serve each other. It, even with everybody under me in ministry or in business, I'm constantly learning. And that is an attribute I think we need to carry very carefully so that we make sure that we don't start getting haughty because we are making a little bit of money or because we are getting fame or because of whatever. And that at the end of the day, we're not missing our why. We need to know our why. We need to know our purpose, our reason, so that we don't get caught in the fame and the success. But also, like I said, what good is it if you get all the wealth in the world and you lose your soul in the midst of it? You lose your spouse in the midst of it. You lose your kids in the midst of it. And I think that the older generation has really compounded on those fruits really well. And I think that the older generation has a lot to teach the younger generation in that arena. And then the younger generation will have a lot to teach the older generation in in the adaptability concepts as well, to be able to build the business that you want to build, to be able to do the things that you want to do. But for the people that say, I'm never going to own a computer, I'm never going to learn AI, I don't ever want to learn Zoom, I don't want to learn Canva, I'm not ever going to get on social media, that's fine. That's fine. You're going to continue to struggle then. That closed-minded concept and inability to be adaptable. I mean, honestly, it's closing yourself to the Spirit of God in a lot of ways. Can it keep you pure? It can in certain ways because at least certain things don't defile you. But that's why it's not about shutting things out entirely. It's about making boundaries for them to keep them in their place. You need to keep them in their place, right? Like wine. Wine is not a bad thing in and of itself. Jesus drank wine. Not only that, we have radical benefits from low dose wine drinking for the immune system, the gut microbiome, so many things. But wine needs to be put in its place. It doesn't mean, hey, you need to be drinking it day and night. If you want to have one glass at night, okay. Or hey, you just want to have it on the weekend, one or two glasses, or you just want to have it for certain holidays or whatever. Great. At least you're keeping it in its place. You're not letting it consume you. You're consuming it whenever it's needed to be consumed. But the same thing goes in social media, AI, all of that. You need to consume it and use it in the time it needs to be consumed and used. But don't let it consume you. Your ability to shun it completely does not express self-control. It expresses weakness and fear. True self-control is having the thing without overdoing the thing. So somebody who's like, hey, I'm just never going to drink wine. I'm not telling you to drink wine. I'm just giving you an example because we brought up wine. My ability, or you know what, sweets is a good one. It doesn't mean you never have a cupcake ever again. It means that it doesn't consume you, you consume it. Never having a cupcake again doesn't really bring self-control. It brings an all or nothing standpoint that, you know, depending on the topic, can be off. But being able to cut open the cake and then have 3 bites and be like, man, I'm good. That is power. That is authority. And that is true strength and self-control. So we have to understand there is good and bad to all of these things, but where there is good and where there is bad, there is most likely the root of good. Meaning the evil one has never tried to corrupt something that is bad from the root. He has only tried to corrupt that which is good, that which brought good into the world. So when you bring something that has a lot of benefit and potential into the world, then you need to expect the evil one to corrupt it. But it doesn't mean the thing is bad. It means the way it's being utilized is bad. Like God says in Ecclesiastes 7:29, God made man upright, but he corrupted his way. God allows us to create a lot of things in the earth, but man ends up corrupting it in greed and selfishness, fulfilling the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. So I hope this kind of brings a little bit of balanced insight. Like I said, it needs to be balanced. We can't jump to the extremes on these things. And we need to look at the data. We need to look at what the AI creators are even saying, because they're even coming out and saying, hey, we're a little nervous here and we care about our kids. We want our kids to be safe. And that's actually why that AI creator came out on that podcast, was he said, the only reason I'm sharing this is because I love my kids so much. He goes, I don't want my kids to suffer because of what we've made. And right now we have a really good thing that's doing a lot of good, but we're starting to see the red horns peek its way through the devil's head with it as well, because the evil one's corrupting it. The same way antibiotics was, the same way the scriptures are. The evil one uses the scripture all the time for his own good, for his own benefit, for his own, luxuries and lust of the eyes and all of these things, right? It's ridiculous. There is nothing good from God that the evil one and humanity at some point does not corrupt. This is the reason why we need to stay close to prayer. We need to stay close to the Lord, but we need to remain open-minded, to be humble enough to listen and really see, Lord, are you in this at all? Lord, are you bearing fruit through this at all? Because when we get to the defense mechanism of, oh, I'm not going to learn it because it makes you uncomfortable, because it means you have to break down your old ways in order to learn the new, I think that's when you need to be cautious. I hope that this episode really helps and brings some clarity and some enlightening insights, and helps the young and the old, because I think that we all have something to learn from each other. Stay tuned for the next episode.